This show is brought to you by Feedback from Reality. Feedback from Reality, an important part of Holacracy. Don't forget. Because of her sacrifice, the earth has been saved, and your life will stretch before you like a golden path, filled with all the promise of all that's wonderful. Oh, hey guys! No one's reading but me.
Oh,
Blake,
hello. I
deep
just
in
finished
thought.
reading Winnie the
I'm
Pooh.
reading, the text on this record because I forgot who it was on, but I guess we're going to do a talk show now, right?
Maybe so. Derek's got a book.
Oh, hey
Technically,
guys.
that's
Yeah, I was
illegal.
just reading Technically That's Illegal. Good to be with you.
And Chris is sadly illiterate, but joined by the Raven and Edgar Allan Poe.
Well, it's a rook apparently, and I got Mr. Hare as well. He's with
Mr.
us.
Hare. Yeah, we can see him. He's looking at us.
I just love Leslie's stuff.
I used to be illiterate, but I'm really kicking that problem in the ass by mastering these Winnie the Pooh stories. It's a great way to learn how to read.
T-I-double-G-er.
And so we just did the show, so it's over now.
Yeah, this is the end.
It's over.
We did the show
Good night,
offline,
everyone. Thank you.
but I'll give you guys some crib note versions of the show. We talked about the price of Bitcoin, which at that time was spiking upwards to 219, but now has a little red candle going to 217 and apparently falling, as a sudden artificial spike like that is usually followed by a sudden artificial down. We'd like to say congratulations to Bitcoin Magazine, which has been added to the BTC Media family. This is the same group that has Why Bitcoin and apparently, according to this graphic, Decentral TV. So go BTC Media family. And now, back to you, Derek.
Yeah, hey, there's a lot of stuff going on in the news this week. I wanted to talk, since we didn't get a chance to do this program last week, about the Silk Road trial, which began last week in New York City, and I attended the first day. I was outside as a protester, got to meet Ross Ulbricht's parents. Of course, everybody who watches this show knows that Ross Ulbricht is alleged to be the man who created the Silk Road, and that was the big revelation. The first day of the trial was that he admitted to being the creator of the Silk Road black market website, which, brought Bitcoin to, I think, is probably one of the most responsible websites for bringing people to Bitcoin. And
Absolutely.
Facing life in prison for several charges relating to his operating this website. And the defense team is doing an incredible job shedding doubt, reasonable doubt, into the jury's minds. I was there to do the same outside the courthouse, but was asked by the defense to not do that. That was very sad and hard to accept. But, I saw this headline. Check this out. People think they're helping the defense, but they're not. And that really sucked. So, they drew some pictures of us, and, we were holding these signs. This one's my friend Andre. They made a little cartoon out of him. I spent a lot of time making these posters and making a big display outside. It got to be on Fox News talking about how I think it's crazy that this trial even is happening, that the government hasn't been very clear about how they acquired the information that they have on the Silk Road. So, and also that there's no victim here. There's no victim even alleged in operating this website. So, there have been independent media covering this event. John Bush of thelibertybeat.com has done, I think, the best job out of anyone. He's been there every day of the trial so far. He's heading back this week. He's producing T-shirts, which people can buy, I think, at WatchMyBit or at thelibertybeat.com as a fundraiser so that he can return from Austin, Texas to New York City to cover this trial. And I think he's doing the best job. We need independent media covering this, not the mainstream media. They're not going to tell the real story.
Absolutely. And I mean, like, for Fox News, I would think of, like, the best argument for a neocon with this case, and I think that maybe the best argument would be, do you really want to pay for this person to be in prison for a long, long time expensively when there's been no victim? And I would say that hopefully most reasonable people would be like, yeah, unless you really have like a desire to crush other people's spirits or lives or whatever, it's like this is going to be expensive and there's no victim. You'd think that maybe even somebody that watches too much Fox News would be able to see that. You know, for non-emotional reasons, for non-reasons of goodness, there are objective reasons why we probably shouldn't do things like this.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I have a screenshot to share with y'all for folks who weren't able to attend the trial in New York. Some people stood outside holding signs. This is how my interview went with Fox News.
Reporters gathered outside of the federal courthouse in Lower Manhattan. They questioned how the government pinpointed Ross as a suspect.
The government not only overstepped their boundaries, they haven't explained how they acquired the information about the Silk Road servers in the first place. I think it's highly questionable the methods that they use to acquire the info they claim they have.
Many of you will.
So I was glad that Fox News actually did some decent coverage of the trial. Ross deserves it, and his family, everyone who came from all over the country to support him, it was really encouraging. But then also very sad when the defense was basically like, yeah, guys, thanks for coming, go home. So, I don't know, there's still things you can do to publicize the trial, but now it's in the defense's hands, and I wish that there were some way to reach the jury. Now, one of the latest revelations is that one of the people who investigated Ross and had him arrested, one of the FBI agents, actually thought that Mark Karpeles of Mt. Gox was Dread Pirate Roberts, and in fact, not just on a hunch, but had probable cause. He had enough reason to go to the government and say, hey, I want these private documents from Mark Karpeles, I want to watch him. And so it wasn't just a hunch or some belief. It was actually, you know, he had some evidence that he brought forward to the government and said, I want to watch this guy. Now, what's weird about that is the government wants to accept his testimony about everything, his arrest from Ross, but the judge won't accept testimony from the defense, you know, saying like, well, you thought it was this other guy. You thought it was Mark Karpeles. It seems like the judge is really in it for the prosecution in that regard.
And that is a kind of a stigma or a reputation that, you know, federal national cases have, is that they will do things in a way that probably maybe wouldn't fly in smaller or more local courts. They're, you know, in the trenches looking to get a conviction, and they generally will get one. So that's unfortunate.
Yeah, I mean, like, how much more could this judge show her bias? First of all, the reason defense asked us as protesters to leave is because the judge said that if the protesters are at the trial tomorrow, meaning Tuesday, or if Wednesday, the trial began on a Tuesday, if the protesters are there, she was going to punish the jury. She was going to have them anonymized and sequestered, meaning they could be holed up into a hotel, or maybe even they would have to stay in the same building, that same courthouse building. I don't know if they have bunks there or whatever. They could have busted them in blindfolded. Essentially, the judge was going to make the jury feel fear and feel as if they were in fear for their lives. They wouldn't know why they were being sequestered in that way. The reality is the judge wanted to prevent them from seeing information that Ross is a peaceful person, that he has dozens of supporters outside the courthouse rallying behind him. She wanted to prevent them from knowing that.
And under the absurd excuse of jury tampering, it's like you can't just throw words around and be like, it conveniently might go in this direction so I can do whatever I want and punish the jury that are going to, you know, be mad about all this and then convict because it's the defense's people. Like, that is, if you think that, like, the legal system in this country is really, really fair and you can appeal and stuff like that, it might be time to rethink that. When Adam Kokesh went down for his stuff, and I talked to my lawyer about it a lot, he was shocked that that didn't go worse for him. He was very, very concerned about it the whole time. So, again, the legal system in this country is not something to take lightly or to put too much faith in.
Yeah, but I think there's still more that people who want to support Ross could do. I've kicked around a few ideas that like wouldn't hurt Ross and wouldn't be illegal. Like obviously the judge can't have people arrested for protesting outside, but if she's going to threaten that she's going to do bad things to the jury and that might hurt Ross's case, and the defense says, "Hey guys, don't do this," I want to listen to them. They're in charge right now. I want to respect their wishes. But what I also am going to do is write to Ross. You guys know you can write to him. You can look him up under the Bureau of Prisons, look up his number, and write to him. There are a few guidelines. I wouldn't write anything that you wouldn't want his guards to read, because of course they do read all the mail that comes in. But I want to know, what are his wishes? You know, if he says stay out there and continue handing out jury nullification pamphlets, well, I'm going to do that. I'm going to respect Ross's wishes over his defense attorney. So I still have to hear back from him, but one of the ideas we kicked around here in Keene, New Hampshire, was going down with a crew of people with all green shirts or green jackets. There's no way that they can forbid people from wearing the color green entering the courthouse, and that's a nice way to show solidarity.
No, I agree. Yeah, there's definitely good ways to show solidarity and support, and definitely try to do that.
Yeah, and Ross looked in good spirits, by the way. He smiled. He has contact with his mother, so they talked often. He was thrilled that the courthouse was so filled, they actually had to use a spillover room and do a projector on another courtroom, so that filled up. And our very own Bitcoin Belle, Michelle Seven, was there. And funny story, it's a spillover room, so it's not an actual courtroom. And everyone, it was so full that people were sitting on the floor. Well, there were some seats available up by the bar, up by the bench, where the defense table and the prosecution would sit, and those are nice fancy leather chairs and everything. So Michelle just walks right up to the front of the court, moves the wooden post or whatever, and then just sits in the nice big comfy chair. The bailiff comes over like, "Hey miss, you can't do that." She just takes out her lunch from like a brown paper sack and just starts eating. "I'm not going to pay attention to you, dude." And he gets on his little loudspeaker, little microphone thing, like, "Hey, we got a woman here who's sitting in one of the defense tables." And, she can? All right. And then at that point, it just so happened that the judge was saying up on the projector screen, and if anyone wants to eat anything or whatever, that's fine. Now, she couldn't see. The judge couldn't see that Michelle was eating, but it just so happened at the same moment, like, the judge was giving sanction to exactly what she was doing. It was very cool.
That's hilarious.
All these lawyer types, they're all dressed up in suits, and they're sitting on the floor. Here's comfortable chairs available right in front of us, and it's just this illusion of authority that tells people, like, "Oh, I better not sit in the comfortable chair because, there's this piece of wood in between us, and I can't cross that."
It's like a big Clydesdale horse, like you've seen the image where it's tied to that tiny plastic pink chair. It's a giant horse tied to the little pink chair.
Yeah. So there's a lot of fascinating stuff going on at this hearing or at this trial. I hope the best for Ross. It seems like it's going really well. Day one, I was pissed at the defense. I thought it was crappy to, say, "Yeah, I'm Dread Pirate Roberts. I'm the initial creator, but then I stopped being the creator, and then maybe I was the third creator, or I was the third person to be DPR, and like the person in the intermediate sort of tricked me." It just sounded too far-fetched. But then in the third day is when the defense started kicking ass and threw Mark Garpelis under the bus. And they were like, "Well, there's all this evidence that it could be this other guy," and then Ashley Barr, his partner. So they're doing a good job putting reasonable doubt into the minds of the jury. And I hope that, that's all they need, right? It has to just be, the government has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Ross committed these crimes. And it looks like the defense is actually doing a good job. So I look forward to following more at thelibertybeat.com, where John Bush is doing, I think, the best coverage.
And I think Chris Ellis, go ahead.
Yeah, I've been following it actually quite closely, Derek, and I really wanted to support you out there outside the courthouse. I retweeted as much as I could. We had Julia Taransky on the show the other day with Leslie, And so a couple of things stood out to me. Number one, I totally understand why the defense didn't want you guys out there, and I think Jotel is, you know, a master strategist, and I think he has to just play it conservatively. You know, he has to look out for the best interests, and although we can all agree that a well-informed jury is a good jury, clearly the judicial system doesn't trust the jury with their decisions and with the information. And so, yes, unfortunately, this is the system that we're in, but Jotel has to be conservative in his strategy, and I did understand, and I was a little bit like worried when I heard that you guys were going to be out there. On the one hand, I wanted to support you. On the other hand, I was like, oh no, this could be construed by an idiot as you know, prejudicing the trial. But no, I thought you did a great job. I also want to give a shout out to this incredible piece on, you see that? Yeah, so this incredible Reddit post, this is actually on the dark markets Reddit, not on the Bitcoin subreddit that we usually post on, darknet markets, reddit.com/r/darknet markets. And we have somebody pseudonymously by the name of NC Lawyer doing a AMA on questions about Silk Road, and I have to say this is absolutely epic. This post goes on for ages. I was up like, you know, 2 hours last night, the early hours in the morning, just reading this in bed. I did not get bored. Every single question that he was asked, he answered very, very thoroughly, went into absolute detail about the strategies that he thought the defense were running with and the strategies that he thought the prosecution would go with and what he thought the judge would do in sentencing, how long he thought Dread Pirate Roberts would get under different scenarios. And just to kind of sum it up for you, he thinks that the defense did a fantastic job with the Carpellis angle. He said, look, the jury cannot unhear what they heard. This will definitely be sticking in their mind. He does give in this, this is actually the top rated article where, you know, he gives hyperlinks to references to everything he said. God, if only every person was like this on the internet, you know, following claims up with evidence and backing things up with links. And he's saying that Jotel is very good at maneuvering himself during cross-examination, that he feels that on the balance of, you know, on balance, that he didn't think the judge made a terrible decision in dismissing the evidence because it was hearsay, and the policies and the rulings on hearsay are pretty clear. Apparently there was a case, Someone v. New Jersey, you know, 20 years ago, and they won the case on the basis of hearsay evidence, and so that was why it got kicked out. And that he didn't think. Oh, and also the other thing he mentions is this notion of opening the door. So he said that the evidence for Mark Carpellis could come back onto the table if prosecution mess up during cross and they accidentally introduce something that was stricken from the record before, because if they rely on something that was taken off of the record in the previous cross-examination, then that brings it back into play. Right, so there's still a chance that the Mark Carpella stuff could be brought back into play if the prosecution met up, or maybe they strategize differently. So this is very much, you know, a game of chess. He did think also, in summary, I'm afraid to say that he does think that on the balance of probabilities that Ross will probably get something like 30 years. That it's going to be very, very difficult for him to dismiss the conspiracy charges, even if he can, even if he persuades the jury that he wasn't there at the end and that he wasn't the kingpin. He doesn't believe that he will be able to persuade them that he wasn't guilty of any of the conspiracy charges. But actually, I'd like to know. I don't want to spend too much of the show on this, but I did want to know about the tweet that Julia tweeted the other day, saying that apparently, like, several FBI agents were running Silk Road. But with the seizing of all these administrator accounts. So what was the deal? Like, who were these people? Because we've had lots of feedback. I've been getting comments, people saying to me that my time on Silk Road forums was really nice time. Like, I met some really cool people. I got help like choosing like safe medication for what I needed with the sleeping problems that I was having or whatever. Like, it was a really nice place to be, and they just feel betrayed that a lot of the people they were talking to were actually federal agents. Can you say anything about that, Derek?
No, I just, that, yeah, there were federal agents who were pretending to be good people working on behalf of the Silk Road when really they were working to entrap people and find probable cause to prosecute them and put them in cages. I mean, that's very sad, but that's the reality. Also, we learned that Silk Road 2.0 was doomed from the start. Some of the FBI agents who helped prosecute or who helped arrest Ross, just jumped right in with restarting Silk Road 2.0. I remember cheering like, "Oh yay, a victory! The Silk Road's back!" But then now it doesn't seem as great, knowing that a lot of the people who helped start that were FBI agents. But regardless of whether or not Silk Road 2.0 was rife with agents, the fact is that the government has already lost this case. Whether or not they put Ross in jail, the existence of underground black markets is not going away, and so taking one person out is fruitless. I mean, it really only is something, I guess, to make them feel good or to make themselves feel like they spent all those millions of dollars and years working on something that was worthwhile, but we know that it wasn't, because people continue to do business without their permission. They continue to get the drugs or services that they demand, and they do it totally peacefully with or without the agents. So, yeah, the government has already lost this case. If they continue to prosecute people like Ross, well, it just shows me that this is like another drug war. Well, it's a continuation of the drug war, but it's like kind of worse, because it's now a war against people who use the internet for freedom. Like, one of the weird things about this case is that if Ross is convicted on the grounds of this transferred intent thing, like that he made a website and then other people used it to commit crimes, well, my argument is then drag Craigslist off to prison, because people are constantly posting illegal services and goods on Craigslist, and we don't hold the Craigslist office responsible for those posts. We hold individuals responsible for their.
More people buy marijuana on Craigslist than ever used the Silk Road, ever, in its entire career.
Yeah, and I'm not saying to drag Craigslist off to prison.
Oh no, I'm not either. I'm not saying that we should. I'm saying Craigslist is awesome. The Silk Road was awesome. I'm just saying, like, if there's
Well, there's a stronger argument, which is that the government have been fighting this war on drugs for a very long time, and over $20 billion has been spent. And I think they just feel embarrassed. They feel embarrassed that some young guy has set up a website and put pay to a lot of the violence in that trade overnight just by running a website, and they're embarrassed. There's no victim. That no one complained about this website. Nobody claimed that they were, that this website was doing anything bad. We've got a bunch of trumped-up charges about hitmen, and now it's been cast into doubt as to whether or not any of those claims were even legitimate or whether they were fabricated. Now, if you've got 18 federal agents running the site, I'm sorry, you might need to check that number for yourself. I just read it off of Twitter. Do your own research. But if a significant number of federal agents running the website and all they're using as evidence is emails, which can easily be tampered with, that can quite trivially just be typed out, then how do we know that that's even true? Again, that's just hearsay. All you're doing now is you're presenting evidence to a court that you're claiming is legitimate because it's on a piece of paper, but that itself could have been hearsay. And so I don't see any victim, and I actually think it would have reduced the amount of violence. So yeah, I hear what you're saying about the intent stuff, but I don't think that's the strongest argument to be going with. The question is, why are they banning these substances in the first place?
Yeah.
Well, and I think too, like to go back, when you said that they were embarrassed. I don't know that they were necessarily embarrassed. I think that they were maybe possibly mad, or coming back up and saying, we control what's legal and what's not, and who's going to profit off of it and who isn't, and you're not going to eat any part of our lunch. You're going to jail.
Big pharma, right? The second largest industry in the world is pharmaceuticals, right? This threatens people's stock options, okay? When you start giving people access to free markets in drugs. I mean, pharma is one of the most profitable businesses to be in. It's second only to food, by the way. And it actually probably wouldn't be second to food if it weren't for all the dark market stuff. So you have to take this into account. We put more chemicals into our body than we actually do put nutrients into our body these days. And this is hurting people's bottom line. So I'm sure there was other financial motives as well.
What was the #1 thing sold on Silk Road?
Pot.
Marijuana, of course. Just like...
Someone told me Bibles were sold on there, but I don't know how many.
Yeah, CDs.
Yeah, all kinds of stuff could be. So it was just like Craigslist. Like, how much stuff can happen on Craigslist? Like, well, whatever you want. What was the Silk Road really used a lot for? For people to get access to marijuana, which is legal in Colorado, yet we're going to have a giant federal case to throw this person's life away because agents came in and were like, oh, there's people of the murder trial, and it's going to, oh, no, never mind, there's not any murder, and then there was and there wasn't, like the CIA set that up, or they didn't, but we just won't talk about it. I mean, it's all insane. This is, it was a marijuana distributing website instead of something else, and they're going to spend all this money throwing a young person in prison, and it won't even keep it from happening again.
Blake, that's why I was so mad at the defense on day one, because I expected their argument to basically be like, hey, here's this guy who made a website where you can buy pot. Hey, jury, don't you want to buy pot on the internet? Isn't that cool? Like, that doesn't hurt anybody, so why don't you just let this guy go free? You know, that actually would be, maybe I live in a fantasy world, but I think that would be a strong argument. I've seen jury nullification trials that have been successful where that is essentially the argument, where, if, for example, a farmer in Minnesota was prosecuted for selling raw milk, and at the end of the trial, 3 of the members of the jury actually became members of his farm because they were like, wait, you sell what? I want that. You know, so if you can get the jury to say, you do something kind of cool that I support, I'm going to let you go free so that I can go get what you have. That actually would be kind of a cool argument. I would like to...
How would that work with, like, double jeopardy or whatever and all that? Like, so if he was found, like, to be, like if they nullified, and he was like, okay, then, like, went back and, like, started the Silk Road up again, like, would they be able to prosecute him again? Is that what they're worried about?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. A part of me is also mad at Ross, if I'm going to be completely honest with you all. I'm mad at him because he had to know the danger he was in.
I don't think that most people do understand it.
I don't know. Maybe he didn't, but to be completely honest, I'm a little bit mad at Ross for that, because I'm like, we shouldn't be having this discussion. You should have been in another country or a very safe location. It's not that hard to go somewhere else in the planet.
Yeah, I don't think that he knew. I mean, you and I have been on a journey, and we go to Pork Fest and stuff. Some of the more outspoken members of this community were forward-thinking and stuff, and I think that the Dunning-Kruger effect sometimes leads us to believe that the things that we know and that we understand, we assume falsely that everybody else has a similar level of understanding there. There's 2 areas to the Dunning-Kruger effect where you're really smart, so you think that everybody else is really smart, and you're really, really, laid back, and you don't say anything because you think that everybody's smart. So the wise man is very, very quiet. Whereas the very, 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 foolish man is very, very falsely confident. He's very, very loud. So I think that you and I are possibly on the top end of the Dunning-Kruger effect spectrum. We think, Ross, why didn't you act in a way that was more safe? And I honestly think that he wasn't fully aware of how much danger he was in.
I thought the Dunning-Kruger was like the above-average effect. Is that the same thing?
The Dunning-Kruger effect, I think, is specifically towards incompetence and competence and how it affects confidence and outspokenness and things like that.
Oh, yeah. That's great.
So whether or not Ross goes to prison for 0 days or many, for the rest of his life, I urge all listeners to write to him. You can do that, and it costs you virtually nothing, just a stamp. So the worst part of jail, I've been to jail, and the worst part is the isolation. They take every effort they can to make you feel completely isolated from the outside world, and giving someone some communication breaks that. It breaks that what they're trying to do to you is make you feel alone, and so write to him, even if it's just like, hi, I really like your website. I never used it before, and I wish I could have. I wish I could have supported you, or just say something to this guy. I know some people who have written to him and he hasn't written back, so sometimes he gets moved around, but keep trying. I mean, it's at such little cost to you, and he's facing the rest of his life, losing the rest of his life. So, please write to him.
And I've never met Ross personally, but I do know his mom, and I'm a parent myself. I have a kid. And you can sometimes tell a little bit about who people are and stuff by their parents, and what kind of person is their parent, how did they observe people acting when they were younger and stuff. And if he is anything like his mom, he's like the nicest person that I've ever can imagine having met. Lynn is like the nicest person that I know. She, I don't think, could have raised a child that would have turned out better. So it's just a really, 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 really massive tragedy.
He's actually a lot like his dad, too, and I don't know if anyone ever got to meet his dad. He's not so much in the public spotlight, but I got to meet Kirk at the trial, and he looks exactly like his father. He's also quiet, more reserved, and got a little bit of an activist spirit in him. So yeah, both of his parents totally rock, and I doubt. Though I love my parents, I doubt that any of them would go as far as Ross's parents have. So that should also tell you a thing or two about how he was raised.
I agree. I agree with I mean, I would love to think that my parents would do the same thing, but I don't know that they would.
Yeah. So that's all I got on the Ross Ulbricht trial. Unless you guys got anything else, there have been a lot of great people following on Twitter. I met some cool people outside of the courthouse who allegedly worked with the Silk Road, and that was cool to be able to talk with them. But it's bringing different people together. That's at least some positive. Like, I want to at least have something positive come from this, because it's such a tragedy that this man is going through this. We're still going to be able to get our drugs if we want to. We're still going to be able to use the internet and have our freedoms. So, I want to be able to have something positive come from this, even if it's just a hard lesson learned. Like, if you're going to operate a dark web website, maybe you should go to a country where you won't go to prison.
I mean, like, that's good advice and everything too for when you start out. But if you make a really, really, really big dark web market where there's, where you're competing with the heroin trade of various different superpowers, that's a dangerous endeavor, my friend. But it looks like is the price pumping again here?
A little bit. Sorry, I don't want to distract you. Yeah,
No,
I agree.
no.
You should go to another country, and maybe it even has a nice climate. It's a little island with some blue sea, and you can relax on the sand and, pop out your Android tablet and check out, what's going on with your. No, you're right. I think that's also, we're not talking about that because we don't know the details because it's all secret. But yeah, what kind of threat is a website like that to the drug trade and the control of those trading and supply channels? I mean, that's pretty crazy. And also, I want people, if you haven't already, to check out that article. I forgot where it was, where someone did research and said that the Silk Road actually reduced violence because you don't have to use the cartels. You don't have to it doesn't strengthen these guys with machine guns on your corner in the neighborhoods really terrorizing people.
When I go to buy a kilo of heroin from like my local cartel, it's always scary. Like when you go and they've got their automatic weapons and you're buying the kilo of heroin, like it was so much more convenient online. Like it's just too scary to go and do it in person. It's not. You don't want to have those guns.
What, a kilo of heroin?
This is Swim. This is someone who isn't me. I mean, I didn't do that.
Blake puts his heroin vending machines outside middle schools.
That's where they're most profitable. I mean, you got to do what you got to do to make money, even if that includes, No, that's a terrible thing to say about me.
I got a little quote since you were mentioning the black market. I said, and this made it to the Guardian, thankfully. He said, for Freeman Ulbricht is actually if Ulbricht is actually Dread Pirate Roberts, he is a prisoner of the deep web and a hero. Quote, he brought the black market online. There's no fear of drive-by shootings or back alley stabbings. And I did have fear of those things when I used to buy drugs on the street. And I don't want that. And the black market online does make me feel a lot safer. And I know I don't have to look at statistical evidence to know that if I don't have to go into a back alley, then I am safer.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was being facetious with the heroin example, but there's different levels of that. If you're going to go meet somebody that's doing something that's illegal, you're like, okay, well, I agree that this isn't illegal, but if they're in a habit of doing all kinds of illegal things, I mean, it's just a much more safe situation to have, something in between and to not go and hang out.
Yeah.
This is all the more reason we need to decentralize ourselves even more so that these marketplaces can be peer-to-peer. We don't need centralized servers, not even on Tor. If all of this stuff was done encrypted on a blockchain, like Namecoins, for example, where you can actually put quite complex embedded messages into the blockchain, then we never would have had this problem. And of course, it was too early back then when he created it, but things are different now. The technology is moving ahead. You even have peer-to-peer shipping now, right? So in France, there's a place where you can hire someone who's going on a journey anyway between point A to point B, and they will actually rent out their boot, and you can just pay them, and then you put it in a sealed package, and you can actually have it sent to a safety drop, and then you go pick it up off the safety drop. So you don't even have to give your real address, and you can just use somebody, and then you have like a reputation system, and then you can like say, you know, give this person some stars. So now like the government's got no way of intervening, right? They've got no way, because they want to force themselves between our relationships. They want to regulate outcomes. They want to legislate for what could possibly be in the world. And when you start taking drugs, hell, you come up with dangerous ideas. You start to think in ways that you're not supposed to think, and it's just all about control. And I stick to my point that Ross was doing the job that good governing should really be. Governing, not government. Governing at a local level. He was being responsible, I believe, to the best of my knowledge and what I know of the case, if as long as we assume that he wasn't responsible for any of it and stuff. So I'd really like to segue not quite nicely on this notion of like decentralization. We've had recently in the news, I don't know if you want to if you're ready to switch gears a little bit.
Well, hold on, I want to make one more comment about drugs. I really want to talk more about drugs.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, cool. I like this quote, and it's by Terence McKenna. It says, "Drugs are illegal not because a loving government is concerned that you may jump out of a third-story window. They're illegal because they dissolve opinion structures and culturally laid down models of behavior and information processing. They open you up to the possibility that everything you know is wrong."
And I want to add that Chris makes a great point about Ross and his governing. It was actually, or governance, or his personal responsibility, because the FBI, in order to arrest Ross, relied on his good nature. It was the fact that they had him, they led him to try and stop a spammer or someone who was like hurting the website, someone who was putting something on the website that wasn't legitimate, and he wanted to make the website a better place. Like, it's not like he didn't care about his these customers, the people who were using the website. They knew about his goodwill, and that's what they exploited to catch him. So just another point.
I think it's fascinating to think about the development model of the Silk Road website. Was it agile and Scrum? Were they having daily meetings? What kind of development team created such a website?
Well, it reminds me of the quotes by Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett says, I'm an old man. I'm really, really old. My entire life I've known that incentives are what drive everything. But even still, in my advanced age, I continually underestimate how strong incentives are. And with the Silk Road, it's like incentives to get money and to trade and to get drugs and all that stuff. Those are really powerful core incentives. So it's cool that, I don't think they did use Scrum or Agile or anything like that, but it all came together. Everybody cared and built something. So I think it says a lot about incentives. That's a good question.
I think they use holacracy.
You wanted to get on to a decentral point, Chris. I'm curious, does anyone know of any real-world current alternatives to the Silk Road that are decentralized? I heard there was Agora Marketplace or like Open Market.
Open Bazaar, and there's different ways of doing it. The biggest problem you've got with these decentralized social networks is you've got to persist the data somewhere. You've got to put it somewhere. Now, one of the ways we're decentralizing things at the moment is that we are creating cryptographic hashes. Those are signatures that you make every time you produce a piece of content like a tweet. And you can create a hash, and you can put that hash in a blockchain, and that acts as a kind of timestamp, as a kind of proof that this tweet existed at this time. You can do other clever stuff like with my blockchain ID, where you can have a PGP key that can prove who you are. You can have a bunch of people witness you generating it and using it to sign something, and then that can prove that you exist, right? But what we haven't got down yet is how you actually distribute the storage of the raw data itself. So where do you put the actual tweet that we hashed? Where do you actually store the actual ID card that I generated in a way that gives me full control over my data without any intermediary, and that also gives it the lightness? So it has the gravitas, it's the importance, the weight, but also has this lightness that allows it to travel freely without interception. And that's the big task we got at the moment. Our biggest inspiration so far is BitTorrent. BitTorrent has done this incredibly well, but BitTorrent has a problem, which is that once you generate a torrent file of a movie or something, it's static. You can't change it later. If you change it later, the whole address changes. So it's not dynamic in that way. It's not random access. So it's write once, read many. So now the big task now is to come up with distributed storage, and obviously there are things like MakeSafe and StoreJ. But once those are up and running, governments really won't be able to tell the difference between random noise in the airwaves and the data that we're communicating. In fact, I would like to do an open call right now for any developer to produce a browser extension that allows you to communicate on Facebook encrypted. So you give your friends your PGP keys and you make status updates on Facebook that are encrypted with PGP. If you're running the extension, it's fine. You can read what they say, but you haven't given Facebook permission to read that correspondence. And that will basically.
That's a good idea. You can used to be able to do that with Gmail. You could just use an IMAP or a other server, and you could send your encrypted messages through Gmail, and they could never read your messages.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be that hard, I wouldn't think.
Yeah,
well,
you could. Someone could do it.
Well, I'm just thinking off the top of my head, OTR. I mean, you can already use OTR with Pigeon on Facebook for private messages, not status updates, though. But I mean, how would you, if it was for status updates, then a lot of people would have to have your key, I guess, right?
Well, no, you would actually have to re-encrypt it every time someone asks for permission.
Well, I mean, you could paste your OTR messages in your status update, and whoever has the right one could be able to read it. You could do that right now. It would look really funny.
I mean, maybe we should do a campaign here on the World Crypto Network. Actually, you don't even have to do it using PGP. PGP would be a nightmare. You could probably do it using some kind of symmetric encryption. We should probably talk to the guys at CryptoKit, because CryptoKit actually has encrypting messages built into its browser extension. So
Thomas and I were just talking about CryptoKit the other day, and Ryan Singer.
Yeah, I think it's a really nice bit of kit. I'm actually looking through the code at the moment because I'm working on a browser extension myself, and it's really nice, really well done.
Yeah, Ryan's really, really, really smart. He spoke at the Texas Bitcoin conference last year when I was there, and I was sitting in the front row, and I was like, talk slower. I'm writing best practices while you're talking.
And I did get to meet Anthony DeOrio, who's also working on CryptoKit and Decentral.tv, a bunch of other projects in Canada. He's very cool. I met him in Miami. We have a question from Visual Vendetta. Is Mad Bitcoins going to do any more shows? Yes. I just got back from Miami, so I have about 20 or 30 interviews that I'm editing right now, and I'm going to convert them to stereo, and I'm going to upload them. So there's going to be a rush of interviews, and then I'll probably do a show tomorrow, and then we'll do a Bitcoin group on Friday, and then back to normal shows next week. So just some time to get back. But what else do we have to talk about today? Theo, you were saying something about Bitfinex. They had some kind of, the CEO is trading on his own exchange. Is that the right exchange?
No, I'm not. There was a Reddit post that claimed that, yeah. So what happened was there is this trader TeamSpeak, BTC Whale Group, and anyone can go there. I think it's a real interesting place. It's mostly trader talk, but the cool thing is that there are very minimal. There's very minimal moderation. Anyone can do it, and it's actually, I don't have the link handy, but it's actually also streamed, so anyone that can listen, if they don't have TeamSpeak, it's like a 24/7 Bitcoin talk channel basically, and anyone can listen to it. Pretty cool. So yeah, there's a guy from Bitfinex, and he's on there sometimes, and you can talk to him. And what happened was the whole thing. I wasn't at the very first one, but there was just discussion about exchanges in general, doing shenanigans where you have exchanges doing front running and
which is
things.
A massive problem right now, by the way.
Right. So it wasn't, the discussion didn't start with any one exchange necessarily, but what happened was it kind of got into talking about OKCoin. So just to give you guys an update, OKCoin has a futures market. So basically you can go, but the futures aren't delivered, so it's kind of a weird thing. Basically it's a really crazy derivative products, like 10 times, 20 times, And at Bitfinex, you can go 3 times on margin. And, you know, there's some weird stuff going on in the order book sometimes. Let's just say that. And there was a discussion about it. And, yeah, the guy from Bitfinex was also commenting about OKCoin, which is kind of weird, but, you know, he's on there. And, yeah, apparently he said something that, you know, he does buy Bitcoin on Bitfinex sometimes. Now, what happened was then people took that as meaning that he's doing like day trading or whatever, and in the morning, at the time, no one really, I mean, people were asking him pretty hard questions, but nobody like said, "Oh, you're trading on your exchange, that's the end of the world," or anything. They asked some pretty tough questions, but and then in the morning there was a thing on Reddit, you know, Bitfinex admits to trading on their own exchange, et cetera, et cetera. And then the Phil PGP, also known as PGP, came on there and clarified what he wanted to say. And you know, you can take it for what you want. You know, he says, okay, he buys Bitcoin sometimes, and it's often as an exchange. Well, yeah, it's a conflict of interest to buy on your own exchange, even if it's just casual. But yeah, you could get into what you know, what's up with that. I mean, of course, people say a lot of things about ghost orders or some orders getting filled faster than others, and that's on all exchanges. It's not just ghost orders. Yeah, that's like an order that appearing out of nowhere. Actually, I was thinking about it. A so-called ghost, people call them ghost orders. A ghost order wouldn't be that hard to do with a simple program and an API access. I mean, it would just be a matter of if then, boom. But yeah, some of it is bots. Some of it could be fraudulent or gray area stuff going on. So I do think that it is a bit of a, to say the least, a bit of a conflict of interest to buy Bitcoin on your own exchange. But I was trying to give a little credit and say, okay, if I worked at a Bitcoin exchange and I was bullish on Bitcoin, how would I buy Bitcoin? Well, I guess I could go to the competitor, or I could go local, or I don't know. I was trying to figure out trying to see it from his point of view. I mean, that's basically what his argument is. I'm bullish on Bitcoin, so I do buy Bitcoin sometimes, but I'm not doing day trading.
Well, it's like
and the thing that I do like, I don't like. I think. Yeah, go on.
I mean, if you're working with an exchange and like there's settlement, there's various different things going on that you're doing with your own exchange without any kind of, you know, reaching out. It's kind of incestuous. It's almost like getting higher your own supply, if you like Scarface or whatever. Yeah, it's really something that you don't. So that's why Reddit reacted. I don't think that's universal knowledge.
Right. So what I was thinking is
say hello to my little friend.
Even if I wanted to be, I can't separate my brain from what I know from working there. You know, I see the orders coming in, and I know a lot of stuff. So you can't just like turn that part off and then buy Bitcoin and be like, well, I was just buying. You know, it's kind of difficult you're already kind of infected with the information. So no matter what, you're gonna be using it in an inside way no matter what. It's kind of difficult to separate that, I think. What I do want to get credit for is that he's on TeamSpeak now, and he's public, so you can just go on there and be like, "Hey, what are you doing? Are you inside trading?" And he'll talk. I mean, okay, if you troll him, don't do that. But you know, if you have
all of a sudden, a whole bunch of people flood into his room and like, Theo told me to ask you this.
What? Yeah, right. Well, okay, so I'm on there on the other computer, and I think there's like a record like 200 people in this room. It's like a live chat room. And so you can go there and just say, hey, you know, or you can chat with him on a private thing. Hey, I think it's good for, if you're a Bitcoin company and you have customers, go on something like this. This is really crazy. It's real time, public. It's really awesome.
Don't spam it. Don't get people to start, you know.
No, I don't want people to shill. I don't want people. I'm saying if you have a legitimate.
I'm gonna go in there and I'm gonna.
There are enough mods to get out shows. I don't want.
Who's on Doomhammer?
Yeah, but I'm saying, hey, look, believe me, they gave him. If you run an exchange you go on, they give you tough questions. There's really intelligent people giving you tough questions. It's not just troll fest. You know, that's not going to be tolerated. But anyway, I think if you are a Bitcoin, what it did show me is that if you you are a Bitcoin company, it's a real good way to communicate with people. I mean, he knows that it's full of traders, and that's one of the main customers, so he's there on the trading floor with them. But it's real-time, public, pretty damn transparent with voice. So chat, you can kind of, it's less personal.
Yeah,
You know, voice you
TeamSpeak is
can't
like
fake out as
surround
much.
sound voice chat. It's like this minus video, but it's actually a lot better than this since there's no
Exactly.
video aspect of it. There's ducking and it's higher quality. Like it's really cool. I've been using TeamSpeak for many years.
Yeah, so I just want to say that I've been calling for a long time that we need to start working on decentralizing these exchanges. It's not just a little bit necessary, it's absolutely necessary. Because it's a massive conflict of interest. Like Theo says, you can't separate your professional self from your personal self. The fact is that you've seen the orders coming into the exchange. You have the top level view. You can see when the people are putting in orders and what they're doing. You have preferential order treatment. In fact, not only this isn't even the worst possible case scenario. The worst possible case scenario is that a lot of these Bitcoin exchanges have been raising money on the pretense from investors that they will give them preferential treatment like this. That actually, if you invest in our exchange and help us build it, we will actually give you an API which gives you top-level access, which means that we can show you what's in other people's accounts. We can make sure that your orders get seen before other people's. In fact, MCX Now was doing that before it closed down. If you were a pro trader, you got to scalp. You got to put your trades in. So you would make a bid as a regular user, and then another bid would come in just above yours instantly. And it used to just piss people off. And you've got to ask yourself, well, what are these market prices really showing us? Are they showing us genuine people getting their preferences met? Or are they just showing us an illusion? Like, how the fuck do I know what a house is worth these days? I can't tell because so many people are just manipulating the price. You don't need Bitcoin in fractions of a second. You really don't. This high-frequency trading thing, the most important thing about a market is that everyone plays by the same rules, because otherwise these price signals are not going to give you the information you need about scarcity in the prime markets, right? If a fisherman goes out to fish, I want that, and he's exposed to dangers, I want that risk represented in the price transparently. Not like fucking him over by trading up and down in exchanges and driving down the price and like playing him off of other fucking farmers all around the world and then making me think that actually fish is this abundant commodity that I'm just going to keep buying more of, because the carrying capacity of the planet doesn't back up the price movement. Anyway, so enough about that. The fact is that Josh Rossi himself, or otherwise known as PGP, came onto this very Reddit forum, which I'll tweet out right after I finish the segment, saying that actually the entire management team monitor their personal accounts in order to prevent abuse, and we all act as checks and balances on each other. I mean, this is ridiculous.
That worked perfectly for LIBOR. The LIBOR rate was never. Oh, never mind.
I mean, we're not learning anything. We're not learning anything. The whole point of this is it's supposed to be trustless. We should be working on things that build out that philosophy, not maintain the status quo. You're either building things up or you're tearing them down. And this guy, I'm afraid, is tearing things down. Now, it doesn't even sound like he's the worst of the bunch, right? He's just an honest guy, and someone's asked him a question. He hasn't really thought about it. He's just gone, yeah, and he just hasn't realized the consequences. So, you know, I feel a little bit harsh. I mean, obviously, you can look at BTCE, for example, right? The number of times they released false information about coins being taken off exchanges. In fact, they've just recently done that. You know, Terracoin and Feathercoin are all being taken off of BTCE because they've got no volume anymore. But the thing is that they lied about things that they were going to do so that they can manipulate the price so that they could profit from it. It was obviously a scam. Obviously, the members of staff there were just having a play around in the troll box, and they would put sock puppet accounts in there and, you know, to try and affect the price and make it go up and down. I think the TeamSpeak forum sounds really good. We should try and actually get that plugged into World Crypto Network. That would be really cool if we could have, like, you know, an 8-hour segment overnight, you know, just keep it running, and then if you can't sleep at night, you want something to do, you just go in there. So yeah, I mean, I think it's really, I just feel like we're not really getting anywhere. We're just rebuilding the old financial system, and like, what's the point in having a decentralized database if all you're going to do is put centralized databases on top of it? It doesn't make any fucking sense.
Yeah, it's just like Andreas Antonopoulos said about that what, like red flag law or something. Like the automobile has to be following a pedestrian with a red flag so people know that it's coming.
It's
like,
and it's, you know, it's not only a failure of intellectual capacity. It's also a failure of morality. It's a failure of will. Like, we have to fucking want this. When I'm working up, the reason I'm so slow in my projects is I'm quite deliberative and I have to read fucking loads of things. I have to read like all the stuff that other people did before me and then try and work out like where they went wrong and if there's a way I can contribute to this, because if I can't, then I don't want to waste my time. And I'm finally starting to realize, you know, people are reaching out to me and saying like, oh, I saw you had this idea, how are you getting on with it? It's like, well, I'm building it. And people are reaching out and they're saying, yeah, you should do that. And that's what I think people should be doing. Like, look at the philosophy of the white paper, look at the work that Satoshi wrote, and not just Satoshi, look at things like BitTorrent, look at Peter Zimmerman's PGP, look at all these cypherpunks, right? Look at them and regard them as heroes. If you're in this space and you believe in it and you really believe in it and you're not just a shill, then you need to put your money where your mouth is, put your time where your mouth is, and work on this thing in earnest, and not just put on, you know, rubber bands on, you know, a really, really powerful philosophy and an idea.
I agree, and when people are like, you know, where's your product or what's going on? I mean, I have been a project manager for some of the largest companies on earth. So as far as projects go, I'll be really, you know, critical of people with baselines and things like that. But you are one person, so when you're one person, you're going to do a lot of front-end heavy analysis before you start your project, so that you're going to do it well and not waste your time. Whereas a big company would have to do, you know, iterative process management, get something, get it to work, get it to flow, and then bring it and present it, have everybody rip it apart and tell you what they don't like, what they do like, and then you continue to make new versions until it's good. But to expect Chris to do that on his own, I mean, is you can hear my son thinks it's ridiculous, so it must be pretty bad.
I mean, so yeah, decentralize shit, people. Decentralize everything that can be possibly decentralized.
Work on it. Do it.
Hey, can I talk about one of the things I've been working on?
Yeah, tell us.
Yeah.
I always remind the World Crypto Network folks that it's important to talk to businesses wherever you spend money, and you all spend money every day, to remind them that you want to spend Bitcoin and not just your fiat dollars. So I recently made the local newspaper for this. My thrift store in Keene, New Hampshire, not only has a...
Looking good!
Yeah, thank you. It not only has a Bitcoin vending machine on our front counter, but, you know, we accept Bitcoin for everything we sell. And I always spread the word of Bitcoin. I've got some informational flyers out in the front to let people know what Bitcoin is. So there's a lot of old people who want to shop at a thrift store on a Sunday morning, and then they pick up their items, and then they say, oh, what's this Bitcoin thing? And then they go home a little more knowledgeable. It's pretty cool. So you know, it doesn't take much to make local news about Bitcoin. All you have to do is talk to a few businesses and get them accepting it. So Keene, Hampshire is just this piddly little town of 25,000 people, but we have some of the most Bitcoin accepting businesses in the world. If you look on the maps, so many local businesses are accepting it. And, you know, why should a place like Keene, New Hampshire be putting Silicon Valley to shame? You know, get on it, people. Spread the word of Bitcoin. Make sure your businesses are accepting it. I know that's not the priority for everybody, but I think it's one of the most important steps toward adoption is just talking with local business owners and getting them set up with wallets so that they understand what Bitcoin is and that they have something at stake. You know, when I go to the bar, I tip my bartender in Bitcoin, and she likes that. She can come in and spend her Bitcoin at my store. So, you know, it keeps the economy, keeps the Bitcoin economy local, as weird as that kind of sounds, you know, because one of the advantages of Bitcoin is that it can travel long distances. But it's also cool to get off of the fiat empire and to withdraw your consent. People don't even see it that way. You know, they just see it as like, oh, I'm spending this other currency. It's pretty cool. Sometimes, and actually, the bartender who spent Bitcoin in our store recently was delighted to see that, you know, the Bitcoin that I gave her had increased in value a little bit, so she had a little more purchasing power. That doesn't happen with the dollars in her wallet. So it's cool to get some exposure for these things, and it doesn't take much to, you know, make a local paper or write an op-ed piece, and you know, putting that before the eyes of the people. Another cool thing that is of note here in New Hampshire, which is, I'm just going to go ahead and call it the Bitcoin capital of the world. You guys are free to contest that. But here we are, House Bill 356. Where else is this happening? an act exempting persons using private virtual currencies for internet commerce from the licensing requirements for money transmitters. That's right. The local government here in New Hampshire is actually trying to make... oh, we had someone calling in for a sec. Anyway, the government's trying to make people exempt from having to file as money transmitters if they're using Bitcoin. That's pretty cool. I mean, imagine if the fight came down to the Fed saying, Derek has to be a money transmitter if he's got that Bitcoin vending machine in his store, and we're going to come after him. And the state government could be like, no, that's not required here. We don't need you to file as a money transmitter. Your rules don't apply. That's literally what is happening. And so that's up for a vote. There are going to be 15 local New Hampshire people going down to the State House to speak in favor of it. And this could happen where you are too. It just takes some people who are willing to put in the effort and go down to your local government and say, hey, you should change the law. You know, like
I would say definitely put in the effort. Have people go down and vote on it, and then if that works out, my good friend Nathan, he's an attorney, and he always says my favorite thing in this whole world is getting the government to fight itself. And what you're talking about is a perfect example of getting the federal government and the local government to fight itself. And I think that's fantastic, and it will help increase freedom in your area. I mean, it's just like a double positive.
Yeah, so I think that's pretty cool, and that's happening here. So if people are, I don't know if you're even in the area, but there is going to be an event where people are heading down Thursday, January 29th at the New Hampshire State House. There are at least 15 people going, and you can RSVP. There is a Facebook event. Removing Bitcoin Restrictions is what it's called. So join up. It'd be fun to see you. And at the very least, there will be a video. I'm going to produce a video about it. And it's also kind of mention-worthy that the bill uses the phrase fiat currency. I'm pretty sure that's not a state-endorsed descriptor, so I want to know who's writing these bills. I'll try and take this call. Hey, caller from the 281 area code. You are on Bitcoin Talk Show. Go ahead with your thoughts.
Yes, I had a question about Bitcoin and potential for IRAs, IRA application, individual retirement accounts.
Okay, what's your question?
Yes, I had a question about potential for Bitcoin and IRA individual retirement accounts.
Well, I guess my first thought on a Bitcoin IRA would be that, long term it would probably perform really, 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 really well. If it's, not going to be so long term, then it would perform exponentially less well. If you have an IRA that's going to pay out after one of the 4-year block halvings, that could be very, very good. I think that most people may want something that goes up a little bit slower and a little bit more steadily, but if you have a lot of information about technology and feel like you know a lot about Bitcoin, I think it might be a fun thing to try, putting your money there.
Yes, thank you. What I was really also looking for was, I liked what Chris had said about this conflict of integrity with Ross and some of the other people who are, people who are trying to, invest in their own exchange and whatnot, and that does concern me. It takes a long time to build integrity into a system like this. So would you please comment on that?
Yeah, definitely. I just wanted to first of all clarify that Ross didn't do that. There was various different other parties that were suspected of doing that, but not Ross Ulbricht. And yeah, the integrity of the various different exchanges that Bitcoin operates through is of material importance. I wrote an article a while back saying that there is approximately $300 billion in venture capital that's waiting to dump into Bitcoin once a Western regulated exchange opens that is going to have the backing of some legitimate Western power and stuff like that. Losky put forth the Bitcoin license thing. It was untenable. It really, really dismantled that stuff. But I think eventually there's going to be, Switzerland, Cayman Islands, New York, there's going to be a bigger exchange, and that will really, really pump the price up. And until that happens, we really need to tell people constantly how risky some of these exchanges can be, about settlement and about buying and trading on your own exchange and things like that, because it's really material information that people need to know before they go and absorb that risk. It's not just something that's obvious to the average person.
Yes, thank you for that. And my last question, and I guess I'll hang up and listen, is that, if in terms of the mining, that's pretty much gone by the wayside, and I've collected a lot of like Dogecoin and Litecoin, and to try to move into Bitcoin. And I know that's practically worthless, but still, it was my foray into that. And I also bought some of these GPU type of mining equipment, and it did okay for a while, but then it just sort of ground to a big halt with all the competition with all the other big, huge servers. How can people get into something like that now? I mean, in terms of getting into Bitcoin.
I'm going to jump in one more time. I hate to Bogart the whole time, but same thing happened to a lot of people. The hash rate went up and up and up and up and up and up and up because the long-term outlook for Bitcoin is awesome. So the hash rate goes up and up and up and up. The price starts to tank. There's a disconnect, and then mining becomes something where the hash rate's going to have to either go down or the price will go up. I mean, I have a data mining center. It's not active right now, and so the next time that it's going to be lucrative, I guess, worst case scenario, will be after the 2016 block halving. But then by that time, there's going to be new ASICs, and the block reward is going to be half of what it is now. So there's not a lot of good news in that regard.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. This is a great show. Thank you.
Thanks so much for calling in.
Thank you, caller.
Bye.
Cheers. And it sounded like we had another person who was trying to call in at the same time. Unfortunately, the line can only handle one call per person, so hopefully that person will call in again.
I prefer 2 calls per person on my line. I'll troll you until you can't be trolled anymore. I'll rustle jimmies. Nobody can stop me.
It's interesting the caller mentioned Bitcoin mining. The Economist, the famed magazine, has just explained how Bitcoin mining works. So, yes, if those of you are keeping it home, this does mean the profit is probably over. The Economist is explaining how it works. Remember, if a technology is new, you might be able to make money off it, but if a technology is old, then it's like Pogs, in alpha form.
It stopped being profitable ages ago. I mean, it was just a joke.
Caller from the 585 area code. You are on Bitcoin Talk Show. Go ahead.
Hi, I have a question about mining. I heard that the miners actually do the transactions, or their computing power is what does the transactions for the Bitcoin exchanges. Is that true? And if that is true, what happens when we reach our 21 million limit and no one else is mining? How are the transactions going?
I'll let you field this one, Chris.
Yeah, so once the limit is hit, then what we do is we start paying higher fees. There becomes an open market. Now, long before we get there, because that's going to be 100 and some odd years, 120 to 140 years away yet. So before we get there, we need to have floating fees, which means that when you send your Bitcoin transaction, you can set a preference of how important this transaction is to you. If it's super urgent, you'll need to pay a higher fee. If it's less urgent, you'll pay a lower fee. And if you have it as a fee-free transaction, it'll just go through in its own time, which means it could be stuck forever, and you'll have to double spend your own coins, which is not desirable. So in the meantime, no, what the miners actually do is they don't just do the transactions on the exchanges, they actually do all of the network's transactions. So a miner performs 2 basic functions. On the one hand, they act as a node on the network, just like everyone else, and they listen to all the other peers around them on the peer-to-peer network. And when they hear a transaction, when they hear someone's client transmitting a claim, and that claim is like, okay, I've got these Bitcoins and I want to spend them to Joe over there on the internet, the miner will witness that claim. He will record it, he will authenticate it by checking the blockchain to check that he really does have permission to send the Bitcoins to Joe. And at the same time as doing that, he will be performing some really, really hard mathematical work. Now, the mathematical work is arbitrary. It could be anything. The point is that he's having to expend energy in order to do that. Now, when he's finished witnessing all the transactions, he'll bundle them all into a block. He'll transmit them on the network along with proof that he committed all of the work that he actually did mathematically. And then the first miner to get a broad consensus across the network that they, A, witnessed the transactions that they said they did, and B, did the work that they said they did, a block is then discovered and someone has their payment confirmed, right? All the people in that block gets one confirmation.
I'm going to jump in really quick because there's two uses of exchange being used right now. There's the exchange, and then there's the actual Bitcoin system exchange. And whenever we talk about a Bitcoin exchange that's not on the Bitcoin system, I anyway like to say token substrate. Anytime you leave the Bitcoin system and are operating a token substrate, that's not on the chain. And there is a lot of exchanges that are mixing stuff up in a token substrate. So be clear about that too. There's the exchanging of stuff within the network, and then there are exchanges.
Yeah, and so actually what this represents, what proof of work represents, is actually a new type of database design, because the databases that the exchanges use to share the trading information uses a centralized database like an Oracle database or an SQL, which means that they have absolute power over the entries on that database, and they can just lie about those entries. With Bitcoin, it's a distributed database. You're inside of the database, and you're the only person that's allowed to control the coins that are assigned to your private key.
Your read and write permissions to change information on the network are controlled by your account balance going up and down, and people sending you tokens that help you modify the ledger. It's really cool. It sounds more complicated than it is. It's actually a more simple way of doing things than the legacy systems we're going at.
Yeah.
Caller who has hidden his area code, you are on Bitcoin Talk Show.
Mixing stuff up in a token substrate, so be clear about that too. There's the exchanging of...
Hey, and do us a favor, will you, and turn off the broadcast, because we're hearing that echo back to ourselves. And then go ahead with your question.
Because the databases that the exchanges use to share the...
No, it's us from the past. The past.
I'm going to mute you for a little while, and when you're ready, you can come back to us. Thanks so much.
I think his question was something about the token substrate, about the Mt. Gox, what happened there. There weren't actual Bitcoins going back and forth. They were Magic the Gathering online trading card tokens that were going back and forth that were called Bitcoins. That's what we mean when we say something like a token substrate or an echelon or a layer that's not part of the network.
Only you use the word token substrate.
I coined the term, but
I like that. Yeah,
perfect.
Token substrate X launching next Monday.
Oh, brilliant! Yeah, I want another scam coin.
Yeah, don't anybody name anything that if you want it to succeed, for sure.
So actually, magical Mark Karpellis is actually still fucking trolling the whole community on Twitter. And I don't know if you've been watching any of his tweets recently.
No, what's he been saying? What's up with
he's just tweeting the most inane shit. Like, he'll just tweet a random picture of a sunrise or like his cat or something like this. It's like, this is genius. The guy's just walked off, second largest bank heist in history, $500 million worth of Bitcoins just walked away, and it's like, picture of a cat, everyone. Like, it never happened. Like, la la la, la la la.
Have you seen that extra footage from the rise in Bitcoin? It's priceless. If anyone hasn't, just look it up. Rise of Bitcoin, extra footage with Mark Karpellis. It's unbelievable, and you get to see his cats, and he's like this really cool little security thing he made to open the door. It's like you press the button and the door magically opens, and you really get
that didn't work very well, did it?
Yeah. When you watch it, it's just. But the best part is the guy is like, "So, are you still the main lead developer?" And he's like, "Yes, at the moment." I can't do his good impression, but yeah, at the moment, I'm the only lead developer. Oh, well, that's really. So you're the head of the company and the lead developer, and so that's. How are you gonna keep doing that? Or are you gonna, hire some new guys? He's like, well, we might be able to afford it soon, so I think maybe we'll get some. But developers are pretty hard to come by, the good ones. It's amazing. You have to watch that. It's only in like 5 minutes or 3 minutes, I don't know, but it is definitely part of history. What's going on over in Blake World there?
Yeah, you need developers. Not having enough developers is a concern. My son is helping out with the broadcast.
Yeah, he said in that video he had 2. So it was him and another guy, and that's it for all of
I'd love to get them on the show. If you're watching this and you used to work at MT Gox, please call us. You can contact us on Twitter at WorldCryptoNet or me at Mr. Chris Ellis. That would be lovely to hear from you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I want to talk about this buyout of LTB coin. Did anyone hear about that this week? This guy robbed MSL.
Did it happen, or is it an offer?
It was an offer that was made by this guy, Rob DeMessel, who made a little video and posted that to his YouTube and also posted on Bitcoin Talk forum.
Wait a minute. He's been on Crypto Converse.
He's an NXT guy.
Yes, that's right.
Isn't he from Belgium, I think?
Yes, that's correct. I
Right,
met
yeah,
him. He came here. He did a little bit of free talk live.
Mark DeMessel was on. Yeah, he was at Porkfest.
Hey there.
Hey.
Yeah, and he offered to buy the Let's Talk Bitcoin cryptocurrency LTB coin, and Adam Levine sort of responded like, "Well, it's a community coin, so like no." But it was, I don't know what the exact dollar amount is. He says in his YouTube video description box, first buyout offer for a cryptocurrency. Let's hope Adam and the LTB community accept, and we write history. I recorded this last summer. In the meantime, NXT and LTB coin have gone down. Today, 4 million NXT is valued around $50,000, and LTB coin is valued around $40,000. I decided to make the same offer and thus offer to pay a premium of around 25% over market. Update, the offer was declined by Adam, and you can see the comments in the section below.
Wait, hold on. It's a community coin, but one person decides? Sorry.
Good point. Yeah, well, this is what Adam said 2 days ago. Hey, Mark, thanks for the offer. You sort of skirt around the issue, but I think you can see it also. LTB is more of a community platform, so it's actually quite important that we be able to compensate our volunteers with credit valuable within the network. If we just used NXT, then all NXT would be equally valuable in our system regardless of how much time or value a person actually is putting in. You can think of LTB coin less like money and more like your score. How much value have you given the community? There's a little more.
Yeah, but then when you spend your score, it's more like money because you lose your score. So it's not really like your score at all. So, yeah.
No, it's not like your score. It's kind of like frequent flyer miles or something.
Yeah, we're all like gamers and stuff. Like that's our score. Yeah. I don't think so.
Yeah. I don't like the score. Well, I have a little bit, because I do post occasionally on LTB the forums. But now I just went over to Polynex to check it out, and guess what? It's up 50%. But I won't be rich though. It got pumped. It got pumped beyond belief, probably with all this rumors and all this stuff. But that's interesting, yeah, because I've never seen that kind of offer. What I'm interested to know is why, if it is a community coin and not a centralized coin, then why not just say, okay, this guy made this offer, let's make our little vote tokens and vote this thing out. We'll stop giving out more LTB coin. You get one vote for every one you have. Okay, I guess if you bought some, you'd get a bunch of votes. But at least it would be a little bit more community based than just saying, hey, no. I mean, I would be okay if he was offering 20%. It's not really worth a lot. These points that you cash out, it's not really worth a lot. But if it, I don't know. I mean, what? I don't know why. I don't really understand why someone would buy it out, because then LTB could just make another one. So I don't really get.
Well, but he's buying the LTB community. I think he's thinking the LTB community would continue to use whatever coin he's providing. So basically, you guys say he's NXT. He's going to buy them out with NXT, and he's going to switch their whole comment system into using NXT, which brings up the point of why they didn't use Bitcoin in the first place. and why people just don't use Bitcoin and the blockchain and the security and the Satoshi and all the things we talk about instead of, like Blake says, creating altcoins or token substrates or whatever you want to call them.
Yeah, here's this other weird thing. Apparently,
but I gotta differentiate. There's an altcoin and there's a token substrate. An altcoin actually has a system of some kind of monetary policy and stuff like that that you can see and predict, and maybe it's inflationary. They can change it, but you can see that. A token substrate, you don't know what's going on. Like they could be doing whatever they want.
So you're saying a token substrate is even worse than an altcoin?
It's much worse. It's like an unregulated fractional reserve bank.
It's like fish in a barrel. Go ahead, Derek.
So Mark DeMessel, apparently as of 11 hours ago via the YouTube comment section, updated his offer and raised it, making his new offer to 2 million NXT in exchange for moving LTB coin to the NXT monetary system and using NXT to back up LTB coin. This offer is valid until I withdraw it here, he says. What do you think of that?
Let's vote on this shit. Let's not stop this, let's just vote on it. If it's a community, then just say, okay, I don't know how you want to give it out. You could say, okay, every user that's registered up to this date gets 1 token, because that's how they do it. If you register at the forum, then you have like a wallet address in there, and they can send you, these cool token things. And that would be really easy to do, and they can just vote on it, and then it's over.
And I think when you're done painting Tom Sawyer's fence, you should paint Tom Sawyer's house.
Yeah, so I just thought that was interesting. I follow what's going on with NXT, and I'd never heard of a cryptocurrency buyout ever before, so that was interesting to me. Another interesting thing that went on this week was an article I saw at Wired.com about this app called Perio. Have you guys heard about that? So
it's called Perio?
Perio, like Cheerio, but with like peer-to-peer. So what do you mean, Psy? It's
what
pretty
a name.
Cool.
Well, yeah, the name is kind of funny.
Yeah, so here's just a blurb about it from Andy Greenberg at Wired.com. He says, cryptographers devote their careers to the science of securing your communications. 24-year-old Nadim Kobasi, I doubt I'm pronouncing that correctly, devoted his life to the art of making that security as easy as possible. His software creations like CryptoCat and MiniLock encrypt instant messages or shared files with 3-letter agency level protection with user interfaces that require Lincoln Logs skill levels. And that's the basic idea. He's making this sort of like Gmail replacement that's entirely encrypted. So basically, even the Perio service won't have access to your passwords. Your password will be generated by a passphrase, and everything will be locked. So even they won't have access. It sounds to me a little bit like LavaBit. Do you guys remember Ladar Levison's thing, LavaBit, that Edward Snowden was using to use secure email communication?
Famously closed down rather than work with the government and expose his customers.
Yeah, that
was
was pretty
awesome.
cool.
But this is a little bit different because now they won't have a key. They won't have anything to give the feds or whoever wants the private information. So another cool part about this is it's not just an email service. It sort of mimics what Gmail's got going for it. It's kind of a chat program as well as email, and also you can send files across it. Right now it's 400 megabytes, but that's due to be increased, in a matter of time. So you would be able to send encrypted files, encrypted texts, and encrypted emails easily without having to. I mean, I use PGP encryption. If people want to email me, it's on my website. They can see my public PGP key, but that's kind of difficult for most people. They don't want to be super nerds, and they don't want to have to learn cryptography. They just want to use a program that's easy and works. And it sounds like Perio is giving people that. This guy's 24 years old, and he's already helped work on CryptoCat, MiniLock, and now Perio. Sounds cool. I'm going to use it. What do you guys think?
Sounds very cool. Love to try it out.
Yeah, there's a cheesy video. I don't know. Do you want to see? It's only like 30 seconds or something.
Well, I like
So
the plan for user data. I mean, I'd have to vet it a little bit deeper, but I think that so far it sounds like they have the right idea when it comes to user data with the whole, lava bit and the demands for stuff. Do they have a piece of media?
Yeah, take a listen.
Your life into the cloud with files and messages. Some cloud services offer extensive security features to protect you, like a password. And that password might stop your Uncle Bob from changing your profile picture to a cat, sure, but all your data and information is still on those companies' servers, unlocked. Why should you care if you don't have anything to hide? Well, that's like not locking your home because you have nothing particularly valuable inside. Whether it's banking information, business data, personal photos, or even just private messages, it's your information, so you should control who sees it. Unencrypted servers are an unlocked home, and they make it easy for all kinds of outside parties to spy, track, and steal your data. Domestic governments, foreign governments, hackers, and cybercriminals have all shown themselves willing to let themselves into your home. There are competing services that encrypt your data, but they only encrypt them for transit between your computer and their servers, which is like using an armored transport to get your wallet to your unlocked home. Others encrypt the data on their servers too, and they like to show off all their security features. But all they do is set up a huge locked gate around your home that only they have the key to, not you. There are all kinds of routes that may lead to that key getting into someone else's hands. Not to mention, that's asking for a whole lot of trust, and we just met each other. So how can you best protect your data? You guessed it, the same way you would protect a home, with a strong lock to which only you have the key to. Easy. That's how Perio works. All your files and data get locked up tight before leaving your computer, and only you can unlock them. That means all our service contained is a bunch of locked safes that we couldn't even open if we wanted to. Let me repeat that. Perio never gets your keys, never can read your files, and you keep ownership at all times. Other services do not offer this kind of protection. Perio doesn't just keep it secure, it gives you full control over the messages you send too. You get to see when messages you sent have been opened, and since you own your data, you can choose to nuke a file at any point, and it will automatically be removed from others' inboxes, even if they received it from someone else. Plus, big files are A-okay, because we'd feel kind of rude telling you that your file size should be smaller. Basically, you might say that we're just trying to do what should have been done in the first place. With Perio, it's now simple to keep your data private online.
So I was pretty impressed by that video and by the concept, by the fact that a 24-year-old is developing this software, and that it sounds like he got all the right ideas. It sounds like similar to the way blockchain stores their information. They can't access your data. They don't have the password. You do. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it was a strangely arousing video.
That's cool.
Now, one of the things from the video that I didn't get was what were they talking about? Do you understand you can delete emails if you don't want people to read them? How does that work?
Because they're hosting a whole bunch of stuff and nobody has the keys to it except for you. So if somebody has sent one of the copies of your safe elsewhere, and it's like, I, the person that owned the key to this safe, say that I want it deleted from other people's stuff, then the network that's allowing other people to have access to it can delete that shortcut and be like, you can't even see this anymore.
Okay, I follow. All right.
We do have an update on a breaking live news story from Dan Gould. Dan asks, what's up with blockchain.info? Anyone know? And according to the blockchain.info Twitter account, their website is currently down for site maintenance. So again, blockchain.info is down for site maintenance. It's presumably not a catastrophe or a crisis, but if you do load blockchain.info, you get an error 522. The blockchain.info Apple app on my iOS phone says connection timed out, so you can't access your wallet. It's not just me, or down for everyone, or just me.com says it's not just you. Blockchain.info is down, and everyone's talking about it on Twitter. They say they're depressed, but people are repeating, and we are repeating, that blockchain is down for maintenance. They know that they're down, and they are trying to fix it. They are fixing it, presumably.
We should get a whole bunch of people to call them on the phone to make sure they know.
I'm surprised people are upset about this because this happens on a semi-regular basis. I've seen blockchain.info has been down. It typically isn't for more than like 15 minutes or something. Has this been for a very long time?
Looks like it might be about 45 minutes so far. Let's see. The post was at
really
1:18. Yeah, it's
I
been
mean,
about
if you're
40
trying to
minutes.
buy something, if you're in the store, this has happened to me where, like, I'm out getting a pizza with friends, and it's like, oh, hey, can I send you some Bitcoin for that? It's like, yeah. Take out my wallet. Oh, blockchain's down. Oh, sorry. Can't do it.
This is a pretty big deal because remember the way that blockchain works is they send all of your transactions. I muted myself. They send all of their transactions through their server. So if they're down like this, you can't access or send your money. It's complete lockout. Whereas if it was an independent app and it accessed the blockchain directly, like I've heard that the Airbits wallet does and other wallets like Bread Wallet do, with this direct access, the app could keep running as a program even if the mothership was down. But blockchain's an all or nothing thing. The mothership must be running.
Yeah, I guess that brings us to a question I want to know the answer to. What wallet are you guys using?
Hey guys, I gotta go.
Oh,
All
wait,
right.
tell us what wallet.
Pleasure as always, man.
What wallet? Sorry, Mycelium. I've got a blockchain info. I've got a Mycelium, and of course, I've got a Doge wallet and a Doge Rain wallet, and I've also got a Franco wallet and a Mazacoin wallet, all on one phone. It's amazing, high tech here.
Okay, you're
Okay,
free.
so I'll talk to you guys soon.
Peace.
Airbits, I've got a multi-bits wallet on my desktop.
Multi-bit. How do you like that? I haven't used that one.
Multi-bit's been around for a while. I probably am pretty dumb for not having updated it recently, but it's it's on my desktop. It's pretty simple. It's not. I've never had any problem with it, so it's just
Mycelium, and I freaking love it because I'm always trying to introduce people to Bitcoin, like going around to businesses and stuff, and I hate having extra buttons to push and extra keystrokes and swipes and stuff. Mycelium is like, oh, here, you download this program, it takes a second to download, and then once it's open, there's your key. You don't need passwords and stuff, and most people, they're not going to be good with the password anyway. They're going to lose it and stuff. So start them off small. If they want something with more security, they can research that on their own. But Mycelium is like such a great wallet for its ease of use. And it's also got a cool feature. I've had people hit me up when I was in New York during the Russ Ulbricht trial because it uses your location. And I advertised that, yeah, I'll sell or buy Bitcoin. I like trading. So people messaged, and I use a username. So they were like, "Hey, is this the Derek J from Talk Live? Like, you're down in New York. You want to do some trading?" And like, that's really cool. That's happening in a wallet app. Pretty cool.
That's very cool. I met the Mycelium guys in Miami, and they were excellent. They talked about how one person wrote their iPhone app. So it is just getting started. They're trying to catch it up to the Android app in equal features. They know that's an issue, but they are on both platforms now, so you can try them on the iOS as well. So.
Cool.
Was Dima down there with Mycelium, or who did you talk to?
I met Dimitri, and I think the CEO was also in the crowd. But yeah, Dimitri did an interview.
Dimitri Rasa is his, I think, one of his handlers. He's just a really, really, really nice guy. Really smart too. We hung out at the Chicago conference, and some of the conversations we had were just so mind-bendingly bizarre compared to what most people are willing to think about. So we talked about proof of weight and incentivization of time travel and all kinds of crazy stuff that was really fun. So Mycelium has some amazingly intelligent people working there.
And then, not to totally sell out, but I am using the Airbits app, just like Blake said. I got to hang out with them in Miami as well, and they're very cool people as well, very much about the philosophy of Bitcoin. They don't want to hold your private keys. They don't want to hold your information, even your location information, which is part of the Airbits app. If you want to use the business directory, you tell it where you are, you scroll through the businesses. It doesn't tell them where you are. It keeps that locally and encrypted, and that's a choice they made, and that's the right choice.
I mean, I love Airbits. I'm not a seller. I've never gotten anything in the form of compensation from Airbits. It's just you have to look at the tech. As a technologist, you have to look at the technology and be like, what do I think is correct and what do I think is incorrect? And then when people build things that are correct, you have to go ahead and support it. And when people build things that are awful, you have to kind of warn people away.
Yeah, Airbits is a great wallet. I use, I said Mycelium for ease, but then if people want to upgrade to something more secure, that's what I would recommend after that. Like, once you're ready to upgrade past your baby steps of Mycelium, move on to Airbits.
Airbits is also super user-friendly, though. Like, they're going for a jitterbug-esque type of usability so that anybody can use it, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, but it's still, when you're setting someone up for the first time, it's like, okay, then create a username. Okay, then create a PIN. You're going to have to remember this PIN. It's like, I don't want to give people a bunch of instructions and stuff.
Yeah, that can be
like, it's really easy. And when they feel like they want to get started with more security, then they won't be bothered by a username and a PIN. They'll be asking for it.
I also had a great interview this weekend with the guys from Authy, and a lot of people are Google Authenticator versus Authy. Well, Authy is working on new features that's going to eliminate what you have to do right now on your mobile. If you use two-factor authentication on your mobile right now, you have to copy the code, switch to the other app, paste the code. And a lot of time the codes are timed, and it's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of button pushing for a normal person. Even myself, it's a pain in the butt. Authy has a new system that's going to eliminate that. So there may be some serious competition in the two-factor authentication apps where Authy's a little prettier, they're working on it more, they're developing new features. And Google Authenticator, it's a technically good product. It works, successfully, it's valid, but they're kind of leaving it there. They're not focused on it, they're not improving on it, much like Internet Explorer years ago when Microsoft left it off to the side and Firefox and other things developed.
Yeah, also I was on Angel.co, and I think one of the Winklevoss twins invested some money there with Authy. There was a whole bunch of other people that had very recently invested heavily with Authy, so I think that we'll see some exciting stuff if they use that capital wisely.
And everyone should use two-factor authentication. If you're on a Bitcoin website and it doesn't use two-factor authentication, that's a bad sign for the site owners. Site owners, you can sign up, you can use Authy, you can add it to your application. I don't even think they could charge anything. They said they had over 6,000 websites that use Authy, and they figured out that an incredible proportion of those were in the cryptocurrency industry. So they are focusing on us. They do want to help us. They said they're interested in tweets, comments, ideas about their application. I talked to the CEO personally. He seemed very open to these ideas. And, of course, I will have an interview coming out soon as I edit it, etc. Yeah. They're all edited technically. Everyone just wants me to mix them into stereo, so it's another step. And I'm doing this show right now, and I can't do two things at once.
How dare you not edit and then multitask and like half-ass this show?
I would totally. Actually, I would edit and multitask, but it would screw up the feed because my computer would be doing two things at the same time, which is the same metaphor for multitasking. Your computer wants to do one thing at the time. You want to do one thing at a time. Your computer is built by a human with a brain. You're a human with a brain, presumably, maybe, perhaps.
We need to donate more money to Thomas and get him a big old supercomputer that never slows down.
I do have a supercomputer. It's just everything that I have is like 3 or 4 years old. So like 3 or 4 years ago, I had a great supercomputer. 3 or 4 years ago, I had a great iPad. But yeah, it's all slowing down now.
I got my super.
We're slowing down too. Let's end the show.
Yep, it's past 2:15. It's been a long Bitcoin talk show. Let's see. I had some more links. Let me see if I can just pass us through some links here before we end. Let's see. Can Bitcoin outgun the abuses of big data? A good article in New Scientist magazine. And again, this is a serious, reputable scientific journal, and they're talking about anonymity and Bitcoin, and it's fascinating stuff. Definitely check that out if you get a chance. I'm sure I put it out on Twitter, put some good quotes out there when you find them. The Economist, this is a big deal, even though I made fun of it. They're talking about Bitcoin mining. This is a huge, very important, long-form journalist source of information. If you're on a flight, you have to get one magazine, you get The Economist. There's something to read in there. And those people are now reading about Bitcoin, so that's a big deal. Send mad Bitcoins to Texas, the Bitcoin conference in Texas in March. We're crowdfunding with the Lighthouse Bitcoin crowdfunding platform, which, as mentioned in this CoinDesk article, I met CoinDesk at the convention as well. They were actually totally polite, very cool people. So hopefully we can be friends with them too. Why not? As long as they don't call Bitcoin Napster anymore. That's just the line. That's the line.
It's a good thing that Chris Ellis isn't in here because I think he would take issue with this. He's
they like to
fan.
They publish a lot of press releases. They have some saucy article headlines, but I'm sure the people that work there are actually good people. And but yeah, they launched this Bitcoin Lighthouse crowdfunding app, and what this is kind of like a web page in an application. So you make a web page like this called "Send Mad Bitcoins to the Texas Bitcoin Convention," and it has a couple of things like a goal of how much money to raise and how many people have pledged. And then you can just go right here to the side. You send your Bitcoins to this address. So this top half is the wallet, and Lighthouse acts as a wallet. So you have to send your Bitcoins to Lighthouse first. So there is an extra step here in donating. But this extra step is so that your pledge can be revoked if the project isn't successful. So basically, all of the features that Kickstarter has are in this application. The second thing about this that is going to make no sense at first is that there's no centralized Kickstarter platform for this project because it could be edited and altered. If you went into these projects and changed all of the keys to your key, then when the project's over, it sends the Bitcoin to you. So what the developer actually suggested is that I put the Lighthouse file on my own web page so that it would be safe, not on their server where someone could hack their server and hack all the files. So he suggested against a honeypot design, even though this does make discovering new projects a little more confusing. There is some layers that still need to be built there with the browsing other projects. But right now, what you do is you go to madbitcoins.com and you scroll down, and I have the instructions here that I wrote. You download the Lighthouse program. It's Mac, Linux, or PC. You download this project right here, which is a Mad Bitcoins project that I created in the app, and then I uploaded to my website. Then you import the project. Then you send Bitcoins to your Lighthouse wallet. Then you can pledge the Bitcoins to the Send Mad Bitcoins to Texas project and other projects that you could download from their websites. And
this is really cool, but there's a lot of thens. Like
yeah.
Then, and then.
It's definitely a more complicated way than just. I mean, for example, here's the QR code for my Lighthouse wallet. So right now, you could donate to my Lighthouse wallet, which I will then donate to the project. But I guess this is mainly about replicating the features of Kickstarter. You have the option when you pledge. Actually, it's not an option, it's a requirement, and I'm not sure that this is a good idea either. But they have the requirement to add an email address here, which of course is fulfilled by a fake email address just as well as a real one. But it does add an extra step. But again, this is probably for real Kickstarter projects. So if I had Mad Bitcoins t-shirts and I was going to give them to you, I need your email to get your address, There's, how much data do you want to give? How many perks do you want? A lot of people want their free t-shirt. That's what they're in it for. I mean, obviously, it would be better if we could just donate, but people still want the free shirt. So here we go. I'm going to go maximum amount possible. Also, there's an interesting note that there's some kind of technical limit on 684 transactions. So if you have a project like I'm trying to raise around $1,500 to go on a trip, I need a certain amount. So you have to donate more than $2 a person to keep within that 684 transaction limit. I'm sure they're working on that, but that is a curious thing. So go ahead and put in a note here, test live donation, and right here, boom. So then you can pledge. And remember, this isn't just a Bitcoin pledge. This is a pledge that can be revoked if the project failed, and it can also send me things through the address. So this is more like a Kickstarter pledge than like a Bitcoin donation. So it is more complicated, but it gives you more features. And we can do confirm, and it says upload, a strange chase of words. And boom, we've got 3 pledgers. We're still 1% funded, and we have a 0.05 in the account now. And right here it has the little donations right here on the side. So this is another feature that Bitcoin has but kind of doesn't have. Oh, and this thing down here finally makes sense. I thought it was a random circle. And I was like, why did they put a random circle in the background? Well, now with this little thing filled in, it's a pie chart. So good on them. I love the pie chart. I wish it said 0% or something when it was first there, and I wouldn't have known it wasn't just a random circle in the background. But good on them. Lighthouse looks like a cool project. Everyone can check it out at, I don't know, Lighthouse. I'm sure it's not .com. But
it looks like Tatiana wanted to join us. Didn't you send her an email, man? Come on.
She's on the Podio. Everyone should be on the Podio.
Yeah, the Podio. I always forget about the Podio.
Hey, if you're going to do a shameless plug, Thomas, I want to do one too. I
Do
am
it, Derek.
raising money for my lawyer. I already paid for him, but if you want to reimburse the costs of this lawyer, it's going to be fun. We're taking the local police here in Keene to the New Hampshire State Supreme Court. Going to really let them have it. And here I got this picture of Gandhi with a gun because the the local police here in Keene, they won't let me carry a gun discreetly. They say it's not allowed. And I have a
Well,
little.
they turned Martin Luther King down for a gun too. So
Yeah, they did turn Martin Luther King down for a concealed carry license, and so I'm in good company. If you want to help my efforts, you can send some Bitcoin to the address on your screen, or go to my website, derekj.me/cc. That's as in concealed carry. So, yeah, if you believe in Gundams and you believe I'm a peaceful guy who should be able to carry a gun in my jacket, then give me some Bitcoin so I can take the local police to court and really let them have it. Peacefully, of course.
Derek should have 2 guns.
Who says I don't?
Hi-oh. And let's keep plugging things, because I'd like to thank my sponsor from Bitcoin Miami, Lazy Coins at lazycoins.com. They're a Bitcoin and altcoin exchange. You can go there and exchange your coins, and they sent me all the way to Miami, covered the hotel and the trip, and it was very cool. They also have lazytv.net. It's like an aggregator. You can watch lots of videos there about Bitcoin, and I had a great time in Miami. As you can see on Twitter, quite a lot of posts going on about people taking pictures with mad Bitcoins. So yeah, if you'd like a picture with mad Bitcoins in the future, just ask me at the conference. I love taking pictures. I think it's fun pretending to be famous, and other people seem more than willing to play along. So we're having
The first time I met you, I asked for a picture and you punched me in the nose. So I mean, do be aware if he has a bad day, you might get knocked out.
That's true, and I'm very, very fast. But I think we are, although we're fast and we used to have a voice, we are running out of voice and running out of show. Derek J., anything you'd like to say in closing?
Yes, I have a quote from Oscar Wilde, and he said, "A cynic is a man who knows the price of everything and the value of nothing."
Bye-bye.